Ever feel like that, traditional workplace hierarchy,
Yeah.
the whole like boss at the top pyramid thing is maybe a little, well, outdated.
Yeah.
We're doing a deep dive into Chapter 4 of Formula G Scale Your Startup to a Growth Machine today.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, this chapter, it really kind of throws down the gauntlet, challenges that old school thinking with this idea called the reverse organizational chart.
Interesting.
Have you heard of this before?
I have, yeah. It's amazing how often we just kind of accept those structures, right? Like as a given, like it's set in stone, like, oh, this is how it is.
Yeah. It's like we were saying, this is how it's always been, this is how it'll always be.
Right, right.
But like, what if we flip that pyramid on its head?
Yeah.
Just like completely reverse it.
Yeah.
What if instead of like CEOs and managers calling all the shots from, their corner offices, we put the focus where it really matters on the people actually doing the work.
Right.
And like, most importantly, the customers.
Right.
The people they serve.
Yeah. No, that's the core idea, right? Behind the reverse organizational chart. And it's not just some like, whimsical thought experiment.
Right.
It gets at some very real problems with the traditional model.
Okay.
You know.
Because let's face it, that old pyramid structure, it can be kind of stifling.
For sure.
Think about, your own workplace.
Yeah.
How much like actual decision-making power do you have?
Right.
Does information flow freely or does it kind of get, stuck somewhere up the chain?
Yeah. And it's interesting, the book like connects this directly to things like the Industrial Revolution.
Wow, okay.
The World Wars. Like back then, that strict hierarchy, that top-down command, it made sense.
Right. On a battlefield.
You needed that on the battlefield. You needed that on the factory floor.
Yeah, on a factory floor, when you're mass producing the same thing over and over again, you need somebody in charge.
Exactly.
But, it makes you realize how much things have changed, right? Like, we're not mass producing identical products anymore. It's a totally different world.
We're in a world of like rapid innovation, constant adaptation.
Yeah.
And yet so many workplaces are still clinging to this model that seems about as relevant now as using like a carrier pigeon to send an email.
Okay, I'll laugh. That's a good one.
You know what I mean?
I do.
Little outdated.
But seriously, like when you think about it that way, it's kind of mind-blowing.
It is.
Because we're asking employees to be creative.
Right.
To be problem solvers. But then we're sticking them in this system that discourages those very things.
Exactly. And the book calls this the iceberg of ignorance.
Oh, okay.
So imagine like a restaurant. The servers, the ones interacting with the customers every day.
Right.
They're the ones who really understand what's working and what's not. They see the spilled drinks. They hear the complaints about the food. They notice the long wait times,
Of course, they're the ones on the front lines.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are actually, experiencing those problems firsthand.
Exactly. But the manager, right? Like tucked away in their office.
Yeah.
They just see the surface, right?
Right.
They see the number of orders.
The report.
The revenue generated.
Yeah.
They're missing that crucial, like under the surface perspective.
Right, that crucial context.
And that's where the reverse org chart comes in, right? It's about flipping that iceberg.
Okay, I like that visual.
Yeah. So that those closest to the action, those with the most direct experience, they have a voice. Right.
They're not just reporting the problems. They're actually empowered to maybe fix them, come up with solutions.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that they hold a wealth of knowledge.
Right.
And giving them the autonomy to actually act on it.
Okay, so it's not just about listening to employees. It's about actually giving them the power to make decisions.
Yes. Now imagine this, right?
Okay.
At the very top of the chart, you have your customers, their needs, their experiences.
Yeah.
Those become the driving force.
It's like the customer is king, but like literally at the top of the pyramid this time.
Yes. Their needs, their experiences, those are the driving force behind everything the company does.
Okay. Which, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, without happy customers, you don't have a business.
Exactly.
But how do you make that customer focus, like, more than just a slogan?
Right.
Like, how do you actually bake it into the structure of how the company works?
Yeah, it's reflected in the structure itself.
Okay.
So directly below the customer, you have the frontline employees.
Okay, got it.
The ones who interact with them every day, right?
Right, yeah.
And they are empowered to make decisions, solve problems, implement improvements.
Wow.
All with the customer's best interest at heart.
Okay, so they're given that power. That's a lot of responsibility, but I imagine it's also incredibly motivating for employees.
Oh, yeah.
To feel like they have that kind of ownership.
It is. It's about recognizing their value
Right.
and giving them the tools to actually make a difference.
But what about the managers in this scenario? Like,
Right.
that's a pretty big shift for them, too.
Right. It certainly is. It requires a fundamental change in leadership mindset,
Yeah.
moving away from command and control
Yeah.
towards a more collaborative and empowering approach.
Right. Because I mean, the book actually quotes Steve Jobs on this, and it's a pretty powerful quote.
Yeah, it is.
He says, management is persuading people to do things they do not want to do.
Right.
Leadership is about inspiring people to do things they never thought they could.
And that's it.
Right.
That's a perfect illustration of the difference.
Yeah.
Instead of dictating from the top,
Yeah.
leaders in a reverse org chart, they need to trust their employees,
Okay.
provide them with the resources and support they need, and create an environment where they can truly thrive.
Okay, so less about barking orders and more about asking, how can I help you succeed?
Exactly.
Which seems like a simple concept, but, I'm sure
Yeah.
putting it into practice is a whole other story.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The book doesn't shy away from the challenges,
Right.
but it also provides some real-world examples of companies that are making it work.
Oh, okay. Give me an example.
And one that immediately comes to mind,
Yeah.
Amazon.
Amazon. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows Amazon is like obsessed with customer satisfaction.
Exactly. And it's not just talk. It's deeply ingrained in their structure.
Okay.
Think about it, right? Even entry-level employees at Amazon have the authority to issue refunds,
Wow, really?
replace products,
No?
and make other decisions that directly impact the customer experience,
Okay.
often without needing manager approval.
That's incredible. They're basically putting a lot of trust in their employees from day one.
Yeah, and that trust translates into employees who feel valued,
Right.
empowered, and more connected to the company's overall mission.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder why more companies haven't adopted this. But I'm sure it's not always, easy.
Oh, absolutely.
It can't just be like smooth sailing all the time. There's got to be challenges, right?
Yeah.
Like trying to change decades of how people think things should be.
Right. The book even points out it requires a huge, culture shift.
Right.
Some managers might resist giving up that control.
Yeah.
And even some employees, right?
Yeah, because it's
I
different.
feel uneasy with more autonomy.
Totally. Like you're used to being told what to do, and now suddenly you have to make decisions.
Yeah, it's like anything else. Change can be, a little scary.
Intimidating.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why the book, it really stresses that this isn't like a flip the switch kind of transformation. It's
No.
an ongoing process
Yeah.
of open communication, continuous learning, and adaptation.
So you got to be willing to keep talking to each other, keep figuring things out as you go.
Exactly. It's about making a space, right? An
Right.
environment where everyone feels comfortable,
Yeah.
sharing their ideas, sharing their concerns, no matter where they sit on the chart.
Which, I mean, that kind of puts even more emphasis on the role of leadership in all of this, right?
Totally.
Because it's not just about, the managers managing from up high. It's about them actively creating this new way of working.
Yes, precisely. It's about leading by